I'm Jason Little, and this is 10 minutes off the top of my head. So, we are continuing with this series, A Great Blessing is Coming. And before we can get there, we have to lay the ground rules. We have to get common ground. We have to all understand certain things. And so far, I've outlined 6 things that we need to understand. And I'm going to put them in every video because I have a fear that some of you are skipping around and not watching all of them. And I want you to be on the same page with me because when we finally get to where we're going, I believe it will be a great blessing to you and bring more understanding to you about who you are, what your purpose is here, where you're going, and where we are, and all that kind of stuff. And I want you to understand that, but we have to get these ground rules down, and they're very, very important. Number 1, the devil is a liar and the father of lies. The devil is a liar and the father of lies. Number 2, we all suffer from cognitive dissonance. Number 3, they are the Illuminati. And Illuminati is not a noun describing an organization, but it is an adjective describing people who are illuminated, people who have secret knowledge. And then also they, number 4 rather, they are of their father, the devil. And then number 5, the science is never settled. And then number 6 is a quote from the great scientist Nikola Tesla, which is this: today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. All of these are extremely important. I've done videos with all of these as the theme of the video, and it's important to understand them. And if you haven't seen those videos, please go back and watch them, and because it's important to you going forward to find this great blessing. Now, I have studied these things and looked into these things now for, I would have to say, a good 10 years, and it's been kind of a hobby of mine on the side type of a situation. When I was in the ministry full-time as a pastor, I often had a little bit of time to devote to this, and I would look into it because it's important to understand the world system in which we live. And the Bible tells us to love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. For all that is in the world, the love of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is, you know what, I always mess that up. I always get the first part of it real good, but then I draw a blank on the rest of it. And it's good. It's much better than I will fumble through it trying to say it. So let me find it here. Love not the world and the things within the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so we need to understand that world system, or at least I have had a desire to understand it, and I do not love it. I hate it. The Illuminist philosophies that are all around the world in many different religions, in many different secret societies, in many different groups are abhorrent to me. They come straight from Satan, and we need to combat them as best we can. Now, moving forward here, let's think about some things. Why is all of this important? How is it affecting us? How are we affected by things like alchemy? How are we affected by things like Kabbalah? Well, Kabbalah is not something we've talked about a great deal up to this point. In fact, I'm not sure that I've actually mentioned it, but it goes hand in hand with alchemy. And Kabbalah came to prominence in the 14th century, beginning in the 14th century AD. And it's based on some secret knowledge by a Talmudic rabbi from the 3rd century who introduced a figure to us which heretofore was unknown, and that figure is the figure of Lilith. And Lilith was Adam's first wife. You heard me? You heard me correctly. Lilith was Adam's first wife. And Lilith did not appreciate his lordship and control and dominance over her. She didn't like the whole idea of the patriarchy, and so she left Adam, and she did that by repeating the secret name of God and escaping the Garden of Eden. After that, God made Eve, who was a much more docile female who could be easily dominated by Adam. Now, if you read the Bible and if you understand the Bible, you know that God did not create Eve as someone to be dominated by Adam, but he created Eve as Adam's helpmeet, which means that she was his partner. She was not his servant. She was not subservient to him. She was his partner. Later, the wife, the woman, the female, became subservient in a manner of speaking, and I don't want to necessarily use that term because you're going to get offense from it, but she became subject to Adam because of her sin of being beguiled by the serpent. And so we need to understand that, and Kabbalah says that Lilith was Adam's first wife. She left. Okay, so Kabbalah is built up around the same type of structures as as alchemy, and it has this idea of the transmutation of the soul. And you start off in the bottom. There's a tree of life, and I should have had a picture of it. In fact, it'll be in the thumbnail. The tree of life. So the tree of life is a series of circles, and they go like this. There's one at the bottom, then there's two here, then there's two more, then there's two more, then there's one at the top and two in the middle. And those circles all represent things, just like in alchemy. The gold represents this, the silver represents that, tin represents this, it's dominated by that, the planets, the silver, all this stuff. It's the same thing in Kabbalah. They each represent planets. And I said, made comments on other videos that the solar system in which we live is an alchemical construct. The solar system in which we live is an alchemical construct. And why do I say that? Well, it's because in the ancient times there were not 8 planets like we have today, or 9 like we used to have. There were 7 planets, and there's only 7 that can be seen with the naked eye. And they are, hold your hat, hold on to something. Maybe you might want to sit down, but these are the planets according to the ancients: the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And that's it. Is that 5? Sun, Moon, 7 planets. There were 7 planets. Doggone it, now I'm confused. There was the Sun, the Moon, the Mercury, Venus, Mars, that's 5, Jupiter, and Saturn. So 7 planets. The Sun and the Moon being counted as planets. So there were 7, and I apologize. The Sun is gold, and it represents what we want to become. And then lead is Saturn, which represents what we are in our natural state. So in alchemy, you have lead represented by Saturn. Then you have Jupiter represented by tin. And then you have Mars, which is represented by iron. Then you have Venus, which is represented by copper. Mercury, which is represented by mercury. The moon, which is represented by silver. Then the sun, which is gold. And that's the order in which you go through to become that gold, that sun. All of these mystery schools, alchemy, Kabbalah, all these things have one thing in common. And they believe that you, yourself, have within yourself a spark of divinity. And that you can nurture that spark of divinity to become divine. In other words, it's a system by which you, through working on your soul, become God. These are the things that the mystery schools are trying to get you to understand and to begin to practice, so that you can become a God. Now, here's the interesting part about it. It's not for everybody. It's only for those who are invited and for those who are initiated into these different mystery schools. Once you've been initiated, the next step is to become adept. And you do that by learning the secret knowledge. And you only get enough to make it to the next level. So the guys that are way up here in the top levels, you don't have any idea what their knowledge is. They only give you enough to make it to the next level, and then make it to the next level, and then make it to the next level. And when you're way down here, you have no idea what the guy in the level up here knows. You just don't know it. That information is not available to you, and you're not allowed to know it. And he can't tell you either. You have to find out by progressing through the levels. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars. Earth is not a planet in this construct, by the way. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, moon, sun. So that's another understanding that we need to have, is that our solar system is an alchemical or a Kabbalistic construct. All right, that's all I've got. God bless you. See you on the next video.